my knapsack on my back. Valerie, Valerie.
They say the secret of good wine, some experts insist, is that it needs to be aged properly and appreciated through experience. Likewise, for a rugged Maine river, it can only be appreciated through experience. This is the Kennebec. You'll never know this river until you've felt it, tasted it, and if you do, you'll come to know it in a different way. The Kennebec from a rubber raft can humble a man faster than a rattlesnake. But it radiates warmth, and you can't help but find yourself picked up. John Connolly makes a living outfitting rafters and sending them down a 14-mile gorge, boxed in by steep bluffs, places so deep you need to crane your neck to see the stars. Oh, it's no endurance test, but the thrills are there. Connolly is a strong, hardy young man who'd rather ride rapids and rips in a one-man kayak than in the 12-man rafts he commands through the white water of this course. He operates Eastern River expeditions out of Greenville, Maine, a frontier village on the foot of Maine's Moosehead Lake, a 40-mile giant of a pool. The river rafting is exciting stuff under Connolly's command. He outfits his people in helmets, specialized life vests, wetsuits, and paddles. Yes, paddles. For this is no spectator sport. Under the guidance of this quiet, sure-footed raft captain, one must do his part if the downstream journey is to be fun. And paddling you must do, and do it hard.
They've got an awful lot of water up there. They're going to be generating pretty heavy this morning, tapering off early afternoon. So we don't know what the water situation is going to be like in early afternoon. So to avoid missing good water, we're going to just go straight on over there, and we're going to put on the river. Now we're going to go over about 24 to 26 miles of logging road, and we'll be taking the van and the bus here. You know, it ought to take about an hour or just a tad more, depending upon, you know, the bus. No, not that. All right. Now, anybody that wants a wetsuit has a wetsuit, right? Okay, now the water's cold. We're going to be doing a fairly technical run on the gorge. We're going to be pulling over and stopping in a number of places. It's not a particularly warm, sunny day, and the water is cold. So let your conscience be your guide, and if you feel that you'd like a wetsuit, we're all going to wear wetsuits. If you want one, see Mike. If you don't, terrific, and we're just about ready to go here. So if you want to take all of your dry clothes and everything that you want to bring with you and take it on the bus and have a seat, we'll be ready to go.
From the Eastern River's home base at Greenville, the group overland follows a network of old logging roads headed for the river where years before, hardy, adventurous young men like Connolly challenged the raging white currents of the spring floods on loose rafts of virgin timber, guiding them to the mills of the downriver cities. Although the memories of that era have since long faded, the exhilaration experienced by those river drivers lives on in the encounter of these modern rafters. There is little conversation as the bus rumbles on through the woods. There is a strange, quiet mood, apprehension, much like the mood of a football team departing for the stadium for the classic and final game of the season. So, silently the bus moves through the country, rumbling along, finally coming to a stop and the adventure ahead.
Okay, we're going to stop here, and everybody can get suited up for the river. If you have a wetsuit, put it on here. There are two outhouses back in the woods here. There's no M or F on either one of them, so just use either one. Okay, that's a good place to take care of nature's call and get ready to go on the river. Okay, so let's get going here. Alrighty, folks, they're right back in that direction.
pictures right on. Okay, we're in good shape. I always do that. Helps to get the fuzzy, effective pictures.
Must be a rough place for the camera business.
Uh-oh. Point over. Helps to get the fuzzy, effective pictures.
John Connolly approaches his trips in planned stages, relaxed, reassuring, and his manner instills confidence in the raft crews as they approach Harris Station Dam, a hydroelectric facility operated by the Central Maine Power Company, which marks the start of the downriver run. A trip of nearly 14 miles, the 4 opening miles on thunderous Whitewater. Rivers are classified 1 through 6, depending on difficulty. Class 1 is like a nice raft ride across a farm pond, like a ride on a makeshift wooden raft, one that perhaps you made on the village mill pond as a kid. Class 6 is nearly impossible. And 3 is the maximum difficulty that's safe for an open canoe. Water and air temperature are additional factors considered when rating the difficulty of a river, as well as remoteness. John Connolly's Eastern River expeditions feature remoteness, a ride through a spectacular vertical wall gorge harboring the Kennebec, reputed to have the biggest and the fastest whitewater in the east, depending on water control conditions. We'll be riding the Kennebec through 10 miles of country, considered the most scenic in the Northeast. The nature of this marvelous river is rapid pools, quiet eddies, which afford an opportunity to appreciate the surroundings. We'll be following the perimeter of one of Appalachia's highest peaks, Mount Katahdin, as we float downriver through a half a dozen rapids rated 3 to 4. Connolly warned we'd need a change of dry clothes after the trip, and as you'll see, the man knows whereof he speaks. It's time to climb aboard, though not until Connolly tells us what's ahead and why we must work those paddles.
Eastern River Expeditions and the Kennebec River. This is the upper portion of the Kennebec River. This Harris Station Dam here, Central Maine Power Company is responsible for that. That sluice over there is what they used to sluice the logs by the dam with, and this section of river that we're about to enter is called the hulling machine. It's called that because the logs used to come through here with bark on them, come out the other side without bark on them. That's not because they encountered a whole bunch of rocks, that's just because of the turbulence of the water making them bump together and the bark comes off. Alrighty, now, nearest and dearest to you today are your helmets and life jackets. These helmets and life jackets must be properly worn, properly fastened at all times while on the river today. We can all have a fantastic time doing this as long as we do it safely. It's a cooperative effort. You see somebody with their life jacket unbuckled, their helmet strap undone, tell them to secure it. All right, now, you all are wearing Type 5 life vests. Tia, come here. Okay, these Type 5 life vests here, they secure in the front, right here, like a seat belt. They've got 2 buckles. Okay, you do it. Okay, 2 buckles. Now there are 4 adjustments, 2 in the front, 2 in the back. You pull these straps tightly and this vest should fit just short of uncomfortable. If you can stick your thumbs underneath the shoulder straps, pick your jacket up above your ears, it's too loose. That's where your water line's gonna wind up being, about where your thumbs are. So you're gonna wanna pick up on the jacket. If the thing fits like this, it's in good shape. If it's not, tighten it down. If you've tightened the front as far as it'll go, have your friend tighten the back for you. It's very important that your life jacket fit properly. Okay, helmets. These helmets, they have an adjustable band in the back here. Okay, this adjustable band, you're going to want to make sure that your helmet's fitting you snugly, but not so tight you get a headache. Now, the purpose of these helmets is not because you're going to encounter all these rocks. The purpose of these helmets is everybody in your raft tends to flail around a little bit in some of these big rapids. What you're going to find happening is some people wind up clunking you in the head with their paddle, maybe with some of their body, so you're going to want to just keep this thing on securely. Okay, now, we have a few pieces of safety equipment here besides life jackets that I'll familiarize you with. But first, I'll tell you how to sit in these rafts. There's method to this madness. You're going to want to sit in these rafts on the side tubes. All the way around this thing are tubes, and they're called donuts. This cross sections here are called either cross tubes or thwarts, or center sections. You want to sit on the donut. Don't sit on the floor, don't kneel on the floor, and don't straddle the tube like this. If you look like John Wayne landing with the Marines, you're not sitting in the boat properly. No legs, no extremities on the outside of the boat. Okay, now, you draw an imaginary line down the center of the tube, and you sit on the inside half. If you sit on the inside half, your tendency is to bounce within the boat. If you sit on the top of it or on the outside half, your tendency is to fall out of the boat. Then, once you've found the inside half of the tube, you want to look at the floor of the raft. You want to find the nearest thwart to you. You want to stick your toe underneath it. Put your other foot out in front of you for stability. Now, if you just stick your toe under there, you'll be nice and secure, and you'll have good reference point. You'll be able to sit up on the tube and paddle. If you try to wedge your whole leg under there for extra security, you're going to find yourself in a pretty bad position. The floors are not attached to the bottoms of the tubes, and they go like this in the rapids. If you wedge your whole leg under there, there's a possibility that you might come out of it with an injury. We like to run a nice, safe trip. Got an excellent safety record. Our most serious injury so far has been a broken fingernail. And this includes all of our trips on the Kennebec, the Penobscot, and the Gauley River in West Virginia. So, don't make us open our first aid kit. However, if you do find anything leaking, the raft, your body, if you find red fluids, let us know. We'll be happy to patch anything. Got a pump to pump the raft up, first aid kit to take care of you. We're all trained in advanced first aid, CPR, and all that kind of stuff, so you're in good hands. Alrighty, now, these things are called paddles. These are not oars. Okay, these paddles, there's a proper way to handle them. You want to take your outside hand, put it on the throat of the paddle just above the blade. You want to take your inside or top hand, you want to put it on the T-grip. Now, if you're holding the paddle in any manner other than what you see here, it's incorrect. If you're holding the paddle like this, like that, it's wrong, okay? You're gonna wanna hold it like this. If you're holding the paddle like that, and you get tired and you strike a rock, which is quite unlikely here, even a little bit of a boil could make it pop out of your hand and hit you right in the face. So you're gonna wanna hold it with your top hand up here. If you get bounced around in the raft, you're just gonna wanna jump right back up and paddle on the tubes. Oftentimes people get bounced around in the raft and they find themselves like this. Well, they feel that it's too much effort to get up on the tube, so they try paddling like that. Doesn't work. Get right back up on the tube and go for it. River running is an aggressive sport. You've got to be aggressive. If you're going the same speed as the river is, you're going to find yourself going where the river wants you to go, not where you'd head out to be. There are some things down here which we must avoid. That's due to safety reasons. So, everybody will be paddling, and everybody will be paddling under the supervision of their guide. The guide will be stationed in the back of the boat. There are basically 3 commands: back right, back left, and forward all. Okay, you listen to this guide, listen to those directions, respond immediately and with some aggression. When you hear forward all, or paddle hard, or paddle like mad, folks, or anything like that, you really wants to make that boat get up and move. That boat has to dance across the water. Got to place these boats in exactly the right spot, or we'll wind up where we don't want to be. Okay, now, if you forget how to sit in the boat, and you wind up falling out into the river, one of 2 things can happen to you. One, you'll pop up close to the raft. 2, you'll pop up far away from the raft. If you pop up close to the raft, take a look around here. You'll notice that there's a rope. Grab onto that rope. Hold on to that rope, and then inform everybody within the raft that you've fallen out of the raft and you'd like to get back in. Very often it happens that folks in the back half of the raft just kind of teeter on out of the raft. People in the front are paddling madly through the rapid, don't notice. So you got some guy in the back of the raft holding on by his index finger and everybody else just paddling hard forward. If you're in the general vicinity of someone who's fallen out of the raft and they're in the river, go over to them. Don't grab them by the by the wrist, wedge a foot against the tube and give a strong pull, because they can dislocate shoulders and give them unusual shirt sleeves lengths and make their shirts hard to buy. So you're going to want to grab them underneath the armpits, pull in the first half, grab whatever you can find, pull in the second half. There's no graceful way to re-enter a raft. Ladies, don't be offended by the way you're being handled until you're back in the boat, and guys, don't take advantage of it.
We've had our briefing now, and now the adventure starts. It's time to climb aboard. Are you ready? Come along.
Okay, let me have some nice steady forward. You two guys up in the front paddle together. Everybody follow them. Let's pick it up, son. Let's pick it up. Looking good now. Looking good. Keep it going. That's
Hear the young people in this rubber raft, this rubber water wagon. They're screaming at the top of their lungs, delighted, ecstatic, as the Kennebec snaps back at our intrusion. Yeah, I know, Barbara. My wife just shouted up from the floor of the raft after slipping from her seat why I invited her to take this trip. But she's having fun, looking up at the sky from the floor of a raft. Our raft captain keeps yelling out, keep paddling, keep paddling. Well, Captain, I'm doing my very best and still holding to the saddle. Keep her on course, Captain. Cruising along downstream, headed for the luncheon table at the Fox. You ought to know that something like 5,000 people rubber rafted this stretch in the summer of '79.
all hands! Keep it going now. Let's go! Let's go! That's it. Back right. Back right. All hands. Keep it going now. Keep it going. 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 All hands. Good. Back right. Back right. Back right. Back right. Back it up. All.
Okay, the nature of the river changes from this point. It becomes a little bit less steep in gradient. The canyon walls aren't quite as steep. So we don't have anything of any real serious consequence from here on. It's just roller coastery, nice big waves, cut loose, have a good time kind of whitewater. So the real adrenaline stuff is behind us. That was up in the gorge. We're about 5 miles into the trip. We got about, a half mile to 3/4 of a mile to go before we're officially out of the gorge. But from here on out, it's just roller coastery. And we'll just kind of float along here. Won't press these folks too much. And this is a nice little rapid up here. As a matter of fact, you can see the bottom of the river in the rollers, not in the crashing waves, but in the rollers.
John, I only have one simple question. What's a kind, dear old man like me doing out here on this river with you? Now answer that question. Hey, this has been a beautiful experience, a delightful experience. The Kennebec offers a great challenge. What do you foresee in the days ahead with respect to whitewater rafting? Are we apt to arrive at a danger point with just too many occupants on the river?
Well, that has already happened on a few rivers down south, specifically in West Virginia and Pennsylvania. And it could very well happen here. There is a marketing problem for outfitters, though, and that might be enough of a deterrent to keep some away. But if the present ones expand to the point where there are just so many rafts on the river, and if there's a short release that day, you'll wind up with an overcrowding problem, and everybody's going to be fighting for the eddies that you need to bail out above Magic Falls. And some people might be forced to run full.
If you were to look at long-range legislation for a river like the Kennebec, what path would you take? How would we control such a thing? To always keep it a quality experience, a beautiful experience. How could we do that?
Well, one thing that you could do that has been done is put a moratorium on it. And don't let any more outfitters on the river, don't let any of the existing ones expand. And just study it. And if you study it and establish what the maximum carrying capacity of the river is, allowing the private sector also, why then you can better judge how many folks the river can handle in a given day.
Is the danger the possibility of the private sector sometime crowding into the commercial sector? How do you make these two compatible?
Well, what they did in South Carolina is they said, okay, all commercial trips, this is how many folks you run, and this is how many trips you run, and your trips have to be a mile apart. And so if your trips are a mile apart, that allows for an awful lot of private folks going down the river. And I myself am a private boater, and I just love a condition like that.
Going over the stretch that we've accomplished today on the Kennebec, we've come down through Magic Falls, we've come down through the Three Sisters. If you were to make a comparison with other waters that you've whitewater rafted, how would you rate the Kennebec?
I'll tell you, there's only one thing you can say: it's a fantastic river. It's right up there. As far as big continuous rapids go and minimal danger, actually, it's number one. The biggest, most technical river, I'd say, most hazardous river is the Gauley River in West Virginia. And we do that one in the fall, and with this much water up here, this is an excellent river.
What do you foresee? Are we ever going to reach a saturation point with interest in whitewater rafting?
I don't know. It could happen. Hasn't happened. Industry's 16 years old. The whole thing started down in Pennsylvania on the Youghiogheny River, and everybody is just loving it like they always did. More people are getting interested.
What motivated John Connolly to come to Maine?
Well, I was already outfitting trips on the Gauley River in West Virginia, and I was at the time in college. And I said, well, gee, when I get out of college, I've got my summers, and I need a summer river. So I came up here between Gauley River trips and paddled Maine rivers because I heard that they had dam releases all summer, and there were no more logs floating down. So I came up here, paddled them, and boy, did I like what I saw. So.
Do you remember your first impression of the river?
Yes, I certainly do. I was paddling by myself because I couldn't get anybody else to drive 13 and a half, 14 hours to come up here to run 2 rivers and go back to the Gauley. So I ran it by myself, which is something I do not condone. It's a foolish thing to do. Don't ever do it. The buddy system's great. I came up and I paddled Ripogenis Gorge and the crib work on the Penobscot and the whole length of the Penobscot. Then I paddled this, and I was duly impressed. These are very big, powerful, forceful rivers, and the darker water makes it just a little bit more difficult to read than the lighter southern water.
All right, let's enjoy the river. We just flow down nice and peacefully and nice and casually. A float trip on a Maine whitewater rafting river. A joy today, a mix of weather, thunderstorms, the sun was out a while ago, we've got a dash of rain, and we took in water. And as I said at the outset, John, you know, a guy like me at my age doing this, I must be the oldest man ever to come down the river.
Nope, not unless you're over 73.
Not quite.
Come on, flip it over. Doesn't matter. We'll flip it towards you. Just hold that edge. Hold that edge.
1 hour ago, we were asking ourselves, how many miles to the Forks? Now the run's over. We're tired, exhilarated, and very honestly, sorry it's behind us. But there's another time for one like this, and I'll return and I'll do it again. Connolly's excellent and expert crew goes about the task of reloading the bus. The rafts are pulled, the equipment laid out to dry in the late afternoon sun, and we all head off into the nearby bushes, where there's a quick change into fresh, dry clothes. Off in the distance, about 500 yards from where the trip stops, one can smell food cooking on an open fireplace. 14 miles of wild excitement sharpens the appetite. And typical of all outdoor people, nothing satisfies that hanker more than food prepared on an open fire. This is what we were waiting for. After 10 to 12 miles of joyful river, a great experience, and finally at West Fox in Somerset County, we had come down the magnificent Kennebec River. It was a quality experience, exactly as John Connolly had promised. And for those of you who have never shared this experience of coming down the Kennebec on a rubber raft, by all means do it. It'll add an entirely new dimension to the Maine lifestyle. For this day from Maine, I'm Bud Leavitt.
Bud Leavitt is author of the book entitled 12 Months in Maine. If you have enjoyed tonight's Woods and Waters program and would like to send your comments to us, please write to Woods and Waters, MPBN, Box 86, Orono, Maine, 04473.